good, everyone, and welcome to Kaya's Commentary, where I give my commentary on pop culture topics, real-world issues, anything in between, and maybe even some advice every now and then. Before we get down to it, you can follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at kaya.r.pennington, and you can follow Kaya's Commentary on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Kaya's Commentary. Also, be sure to hit the follow/subscribe button, and if you're on YouTube, click the notification bell so you get notified when new videos drop. Now let's kick off the show with something informational and educational. What is Women's History Month and why do we celebrate it? For those that don't know, March is Women's History Month, and while I'm still not certain as to whether or not I want to make this into an entire series like I do at 28 Days of Black History, bouncing from Black History Month to Women's History Month, I did feel the need to address it. So let's get into it. So the United States Women's History Month actually started out as a week starting the week of March 7th, 1982. Within 5 years, every March had a week dedicated to the celebration of women's history. But it was only when the National Women's History Project petitioned Congress that it would officially become an entire month in 1987. And over the years, administrations have continued to alter and add resolutions to reinforce that every year the entirety of March is declared Women's History Month. And we use this month to celebrate the contributions that women have made in U.S. history and even sometimes around the world that often get overlooked and overshadowed today. And that's why we celebrate Women's History Month. And with that, let's kick it into our next segment. Let's go to the movies, where I talk about a movie that I've seen. Today's movie, Disenchanted. So this is a sequel of Enchanted, Disney's 2007 Enchanted. So just to give a brief background of that. So it follows Giselle, who lives in this fairy tale land of Andalasia, and she's set to marry Andalasia's Prince Edward. However, the queen and Edward's mother, who doesn't want to lose power, ends up pushing Giselle down a well and sends her to a place where there are no happily ever afters, New York City. And so here, Giselle does have a hard time adjusting to the quote-unquote real world at first, but she ends up falling in love with Robert, who is actually her true love. She thought Edward was going to be her true love, which is why she was marrying him, even though she just met him. But hey, it's fairy tale land. Of course you marry people you only met an hour ago in fairy tale land. So she actually ends up falling in love with Robert and his sweet young daughter, Morgan. However, Robert has a fiance, and so how it all ends up going down is that the fiance, Nancy, she ends up falling in love with Edward, and she goes back to Andalasia while Giselle stays in New York, and she gets married to Robert. She has her own fashion business. She becomes the stepmother to Morgan. Boom, happily ever after. Basic plot of that movie. It's a good movie. I could watch that over and over. Excuse me. I could watch that over and over, especially the two songs, because there are two songs in that movie, but they work for that movie. What is it? How does she know? How does she know that you love her? And what's the other one? I never really know the title of the other one, but I've been dreaming of a true love's kiss. Yeah, da, 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 da. So those two songs, and I think it's really only two, they work for that movie. And then we flash forward like 10 to 15 years later, and so Giselle and Robert now have a baby, and Morgan is now a teenager who, she's actually not the actress who played Morgan in the original one. While Morgan is in this movie, it's only for a glimpse, and I think they did that because either that actress who actually played Morgan in Enchanted either doesn't act anymore or she couldn't sing, because Disenchanted is a musical. While Enchanted had two songs where they were obviously aware that so Giselle starts singing and Robert is like, how does everyone know this song? Why are you singing? Like, it was very obviously aware. And this one, it's a musical to be a musical. The other one, you had songs in it, but you were aware that it broke that fourth wall, right? But this one, everyone sings. So here's how it goes. Giselle and Robert, they have a baby. Morgan is now a teenager. They're living in a cramped New York apartment. And so Giselle is like, we're expanding our family. We should try new things, right? She's really having a midlife crisis. So she's questioning her happily ever after. So they move to the suburbs in the hopes that she can regain her happily ever after. Robert has to leave his job and find a new law firm job out in the suburbs. Or it's really still in the city, but he has to like take a train so far out to get there. Morgan has to change schools, so she's now the new girl in the high school, so that's fun. Um, and like I said, Giselle at the end of Enchanted had like a fashion business. She made clothes. Here, we don't see that. She doesn't have that. There is no fashion business. She's just a stay-at-home mom. And it's like, it's no wonder she's having a midlife crisis and she feels like her happily ever after isn't a happily ever after, because they erased all of that and just made her a stay-at-home mom. Like she couldn't be a mom and have a career too. But anyway, I digress. Let's continue with the plot. So they move to the suburbs. They meet. I can't pronounce her name because it's so weird. Malvania. It's something like that. Malvina. We'll say Malvina. And so she is like the queen bee of the suburbs. And so Giselle is trying to fit in, but she still's like not fitting in that great. The house that they were moving into, which was supposed to already be like fixed up, is still quite a bit of a fixer-upper. So Morgan's clothes, they get burned in a fire, because an electrical fire, because they flipped on the light in her room and then everything just caught fire. So she has no clothes. She has to borrow clothes from Giselle, who has all these middle-aged mom slash fairy tale, obviously a mom clothes, right? And so Morgan has to wear that to high school. That's fun. Anyway, so Giselle is still questioning, this isn't really quite like a happily ever after. So as like a baby present, Edward and Nancy, who are now like king and queen of Andalasia, they gift Robert and Giselle's baby a wishing wand. They're like, you have to be very careful with this wishing wand because it's a literal wishing wand, okay? Like stuff gets a little crazy with this. So Giselle takes that wand and she wishes for her life to be more like Andalasia. And so what happens is her world does end up becoming a fairy tale, all the while Andalasia's magic is fueling this fairy tale. So Andalasia is being sucked dry and turning, just horrible. And so Giselle starts to become this evil stepmom because she's a stepmom, and in fairy tales they're always evil, so she has to become that way. She gets into a who's badder competition with Malvina, and so Malvina is queen in this fairy tale world. She's queen, and so Giselle threatens that. So Giselle is having this back and forth, I'm bad, I'm good, I'm bad, I'm good. And so while she's still good, she pushes Morgan down a well to send her to Andalasia to get Nancy and Edward's help to stop what's happening. So basically, it's up to Nancy, Edward, and Morgan to like stop, and they do at the end. Wait just a little before midnight or after midnight, because everything has to happen by midnight. And Giselle learns her lesson, and that's pretty much the movie for the most part. Let's talk about why this movie doesn't work. Let's just get into it. It's a musical, like I said, and I just don't think this content was meant to be a musical. I mean, obviously they made it into a musical, but it shouldn't have been. The first one had 2 music songs in it, and they worked, and you were aware. There's like, why are you breaking out into song? How does everyone know this song? I've never heard this song. And so that's what like made it funny. But this one, the music made the plot drag so much. Like it was so hard to get into this. Now I know that I said on the internet at one point that I was a little eager to see evil Giselle, but it was so hard to make it through this movie. And I also have said that I don't really trust people who don't like musicals, because how can you suspend your disbelief for any other kind of like fantasy fiction world, but musicals is where you draw the line. But for Disenchanted, I get it. I won't judge you for Disenchanted. The songs, made the plot drag. The plot was just, it was stale. It was going nowhere. Like, you know, the movie had an end and you know where it was going at the end, but it's also like it took so many country back roads to get there because it was just the songs, which were not as great as the two songs in Enchanted. And you know, yes, we don't get enough of James Marsden singing. Yes, they kind of hyped up this, and we even don't, I'll say this, we even don't really get him singing much in this movie. And we don't even get Adina Menzel singing a lot, even though they really kind of hyped up this movie to be like, oh yeah, she's singing in it, because she notoriously didn't sing in the first one, but they're like, she sings in this one, you're gonna see her sing in this one. And she doesn't really sing much in it either, and the songs themselves are just, they're not as memorable as How Does She Know That You Love Her, or I've Been Dreaming of a True Love's Kiss. Like, those were just two songs in like an hour movie that I could listen to on repeat, compared to like the 5-10 songs in this movie that are just like, y'all don't have to break out into song every 2 minutes. Now I will say this, Morgan has a line that's like, oh no, please don't break out into song. So obviously they're still aware on that end, but this movie is just more musical, and it didn't work as a musical. It shouldn't have been a musical. I've also said on the internet before, I don't think we need sequels that are just so past the original film or whatever, what have you. Like, everyone is aged here, like very middle-aged here, like to the point that it's low-key, just a little bit unreasonable that they just have a fresh new baby, a fresh new newborn, right? Like, just a little unreasonable, just a little bit. But just having a sequel so many years after the first one is just so after the fact. Like, it is so after the fact. Like, this, the singing wasn't great, the plot dragged, it was so hard to watch this movie. Evil Giselle wasn't really entertaining. It kept being this back and forth thing. And then Chip the squirrel, he got turned into a cat because every evil stepmother has a cat. Like, it was so many other Disney fairy tales just kind of rolled into this one. And it's not like you expected something great out of this. Like, I didn't expect something great out of this, but it's also like, be better. Like I wanted better for it, and it was not great. The plot dragged, the music was not memorable, Evil Giselle wasn't entertaining, the whole I'm Badder competition just wasn't entertaining. Malvina has like the two followers who end up being like her henchmen, which, you know, that happens in Disney movies, you always have two. But here it just felt so high school, like them following her every word for the most part just felt like, I don't know, it felt like so high school. Like, I don't, and these are middle-aged women. Like, this movie, it just wasn't great. And I hate to be all compare-like and be like, oh no, the first one was better, this one was trash, but the first one was better. This one should not have been made. There's no reason for it. We really did not need a, hey, here's where they are and what they're doing now. Like, Enchanted ended at a pretty good point. Like, we didn't need any, I don't know who had questions about where Giselle, Robert, and Morgan were like 10 years later, or Nancy and Edward where they were 10 years later, and they aren't even in a film. Like, I said that Idina Menzel and James Marsden didn't really sing, and that's because they weren't even really in the film for the most part. They weren't. So it dragged. Nothing memorable about this movie. We don't need sequels this far out. It's just so after the fact. Nothing was entertaining. I'm sorry. And probably my lowest rating yet. 3 out of 10. 3 out of 10. If you need background noise, there you go. I'm sure there is some young adult kid out there. Younger kid, rather, because young adult me would not have tolerated this. So some young child out there who will find this entertaining and just be mindlessly entertained, I'd much rather you put on the first one for them. They'll be that much more entertained. But somewhere out there, someone enjoyed this, and I guess that makes it worth it. So 2 out of 10. Sorry, this was not it, and it should not have been made. And with that, let's kick it into our next segment, Unpopular Opinions, where I give my commentary on an unpopular opinion I have. Today's unpopular opinion, the notion of I want someone obsessed with me, and why that really makes me itch. I want to start by saying that this is just my unpopular opinion. You don't have to agree with it. You can have your little discord in the comments. Just be respectful. But let's get into it. So, and maybe I'm taking this too literal. Maybe that's the problem, that I am taking this too literal. But obsessed has like a bad meaning for me, like a bad connotation for me, like, or not like the greatest, right? When you think obsessed, you're like, oh, I'm obsessed with that movie. I watch that movie every day. Or I watch her walk home every day. I watch them sleep every day. Like, obsessed just has such a negative connotation. Like, it's so weird. Why do you want someone obsessed with you? Like, it makes me think like Joe Goldberg and any other stalker show out there, or Criminal Minds, like or Law and Order, or anything that's just like sexually based heinous crimes or whatever, right? Like, I'm sorry. Yes, you deserve to have someone who makes you a priority in your life for a lot of things. But as far as like being obsessed, I can't tell you what not to say. I really can't, especially over the wide web. Well, I can't tell you what not to say on most things. But saying that you want someone obsessed with you scares me, because like, and I've seen like a number of people on the internet talk about you really don't want someone obsessed with you, which means I'm not the only one who thinks that this is weird when you say you want someone obsessed with you. They'll be like, no, it's really not what you want. It was scary, it was abusive, it was toxic. Like, to me, when you say obsessed, that comes off as like, I just see them like being toxic towards you. I see them cutting off everybody else in your life so that they're the only ones left. I see them monitoring what you do and all of that. Like, why would you want somebody obsessed with you? Maybe I'm looking at it too literal. That's a very real possibility. But I also know, like, from seeing those testimonies of people who like, you really do not want someone obsessed with you, I know I'm not the only one who thinks that that's weird, that that's creepy, or that the words obsessed just bring something not great to mind. Like, I wouldn't want nobody obsessed with me. And this is me personally, because I just don't like people in my space like that. Like, I don't like, I would feel smothered. But that's just me, because I don't like people in my space like that. So like, that would drive me up the walls. You always under me, or so like that would drive me. But I might be weird. I might be weird because I don't like people in my space like that. I want my space. So I just might be weird. But I can't tell you what not to say. I just wish people would say that less, because I think obsessed, and I think the most like horrific things. And I don't know what you're thinking about when you say obsessed. And in some cases, I have seen people be like, no, they have to be obsessed with me. They have to be under me all the time. And it's like, why? Why do you want somebody in your space like that? Why? To each their own. To each their own, because I know this is coming off a little judgmental, but like, my unpopular opinion, I don't think people should say they want someone obsessed with them, because that's scary to me. Like, obsessed has like a really not great it doesn't bring great things to mind for me, and clearly for a lot of other people who are like, you really don't want someone obsessed with you. So I think people should say it less. Like, it's just weird. It's just weird to me. To each their own. It's just a little weird to me because it doesn't bring the greatest things to mind. But with that, let's get into our next segment, Damn You Cancellation. I give my commentary on a TV show that I love to watch that got canceled, and I hate that it got canceled. Today's show, Whiskey Cavalier. This show aired on ABC like 2019, I want to say. And it followed FBI agent Will Chase and CIA agent Francisca Frankie Throwbridge. Now, they end up having to work together, and Frankie is the sarcastic realist, while Will is the soft-hearted romantic. So clearly they have different ways of doing things, but they have to work together to form this interagency of people, which includes behavioral analysis, Susan, and brilliant weird tech guys, Standish and Jay. So they have this weird thing where, well, it's not a weird thing, but like I said, Will and Frankie have different approaches to things, but they quickly grow to this like buddying friendship type thing. Work partners anyway, and everyone in their little circle kind of likes each other, except for their I don't want to call him a handler, but he's the one who gives them their assignments, so whatever you call that. He is Will's ex-best friend, and I say ex-best friend because he was having an affair with Will's fiance. I think she was his fiance. She might have been his girlfriend, and it was going on for like 7 months. And so he has to work with that group too, and he's trying to make amends. He's like, oh, it was a mistake. A 7-month-long mistake with my girlfriend who you knew I was serious about. So no one in the group kind of really likes him, but outside of that, everyone else kind of goes together. So they also do this will they won't they between Frankie and Will, and you actually don't even find out if they do or if they don't. They have their moments, but we actually don't find out if they do or if they don't. And at the end of it all, so it's this bad guy. We don't like, they have a villain, an arch villain, all the while taking on different cases each episode, but there's this arch villain, right? So they stop the arch villain. The arch villain's girlfriend was fake dating Standish to kind of get information from them, and so he ends up killing her. Standish ends up killing the fake girlfriend. So to get even, the overarching villain stabs Standish, but we don't know if he survives or not. He gets stabbed in the street. He stabs him in the street, and it's just like, who knows? Who knows if Will and Frankie got together? Who knows if Standish will live? We'll never know. We'll never know. And I was praying to the TV gods that this show would get renewed. Like, this had to be one of the last shows that I actually watched on TV for a long time. Like, we got a whole bunch of streaming services, and I started gravitating towards the streaming services and not liking that I was gravitating towards the streaming services, because I don't want TVs to be like VHS tapes, and that's where we're heading. Like, DVDs and TVs are heading towards VHS tapeville, and I don't like that. And so I was like, no, let me do my part to keep TV shows on TV, on network TV, alive. So this was like one of the last shows that I had watched on TV at the time, and I almost had a second season, almost. So ABC canceled the show. Then they put it in limbo for a few days, and those were like the longest few days of my life. Like, I was so invested in the show, but ultimately they decided that financially wise and ratings wise, it just wasn't worth it, and they canceled the show. And I hate it so bad. And I know those actors have probably gone on to do better stuff. Standish is now in another widely popular, very successful ABC show. You might know it. Abbott Elementary. Yeah. So they're I'm sure they're all doing great. Frankie is Lauren Cohan, so she was The Walking Dead before this. I can't think of anyone else at the top of my head, but I'm sure those actors are all doing great right now. But like, I just hated that show got canceled. I was so invested in it. It was one of the last shows I watched on network TV up until like 3 years ago, when I finally got back into Law and Order. So I hate that this show got canceled. It has so much potential. I will never know if Frankie and Will got together. I will never know if Standish survived. And I hate that because I didn't want Standish to die. We like Standish. We do. So that's my little damn you cancellation TV show. A TV show that I have in my cancel too soon roster. And with that, that's Kaya's commentary. Thanks for listening and watching. If you like this episode, give it a thumbs up, hit the follow/subscribe button, leave a comment down below, let me know any of your thoughts. Be respectful, but certainly let me know any of your thoughts in the comments down below. And with that, I'll see you next week.